In this video, I want to talk about how we can improve as a street photographer. Now, I'm not outside giving you some very practical tips and tricks on camera settings, composition tips. If you've watched photography content on YouTube before, then you don't need me to tell you about the rule of thirds. So this isn't going to be about that. This is going to be about changing our approach and maybe our mindset in order to become a better creative and a better street photographer specifically. And I want this to be an open discussion. I want you guys to leave some comments below because I did actually ask you on Instagram, what helps you take better photos as a photographer? And you wasn't allowed to say gear. What allows us, what environment do we need to be in to actually take better images? This starts with a quote from Robert Kiyosaki. Focus stands for follow one course until successful. I did assume at first that this meant business, finances, more professional areas of our life. If you stick to one thing, if you focus on one thing, then it's going to improve. But this can actually be applied to our creative world, and I've experienced this firsthand with my street photography. A little story, so I was in London 2 weekends ago with the girlfriend. We were out and about, wandering from coffee shop to tourist attraction to restaurant. It was a pretty chilled day. Now, the idea and the purpose of that day wasn't to go out and do street photography. I did, however, take my camera and just had it in my hand. If anything came up, then I would happily shoot a photo. But here's the thing, nothing came up all day. I had my camera in my right hand for at least 6 hours in London and I didn't get a single image. I'm not even joking, I don't even think I pressed the shutter once. Some of you might have higher expectations of me as someone that makes content about street photography. And that's where my point starts here. I was out in the city of London all day, didn't get a single image. Now, how can I improve on that? How can I fix that? Now, it's not a problem that always happens. Creativity comes and goes. It's not a constant. I don't think we all need to be perfect all the time. I can guarantee that it isn't the lens or the camera or the weather or anything else that I might blame my poor creativity on that day. The reason I didn't take any photos that day is because my approach was all wrong. It wasn't because I was using the wrong lens, and that's an easy thing for people to blame. And that's where the idea of focus, follow one course until successful could really help with this. The idea that I was just hoping to spot anything isn't quite good enough when your creativity is at a low, or maybe you're not inspired. You can't just expect it to happen. I don't think creativity works like that. You need to do something, you need to change something to enable you to be more creative. I'm sure you've heard of a photography project or a photo series. These are professional or personal collection of images that stand for something, they follow a certain theme, they're just very consistent. I'm not here to lecture you on starting a photography project, although they allow intention, they create a purpose to go and shoot something. If you have a photography project in mind and you want to go and collect and shoot a certain set of images, that can be a way of being specific about your work, instead of just going out into the city like I was and just hoping for the best. That's not always going to work. Sometimes you have to be more specific and you have to say, right, I'm going to take a bunch of long exposure photography today. That's my set aim. That's my project for today. What I'm suggesting is similar to a photo series, but it isn't requiring you to end up with a whole collection of images you're proud of. What I'm suggesting is getting even more specific and finding one thing to focus on, follow one course until successful. Now, for street photography, let's say that it is leading line images. I know how to take a leading line image. I don't need any form of creativity to know how to take a leading line image. Just look for lines on the floor, look for some lines on some buildings, whatever it takes, just take a leading line image, and that right there is going to be your first image of the day. Now, the reason I know this works is because when I go out with a purpose and a goal in mind with my photography, let's say I'm filming a POV video, I'm filming a YouTube video specifically, I know exactly what photos I need to take to end up with an output or to end up with the YouTube video. So when I had the Fuji camera last week or the week before, all I wanted was 30 images for the POV video. And then as soon as I started filming the POV, I was clicking away and I ended up with, I think I got 50 to 60 images, 20 to 30 of them you might have seen on YouTube. And it was genuinely easy to do. I wasn't just wandering around hoping for the best. I got specific, I focused on one thing, and that was images for a YouTube video. And if that isn't specific enough, I could have gone even further and maybe done, all right, I'm just gonna take portraits of strangers today. Every time I see an interesting character on the street, I'm going to take their photo. That leading line image I explained earlier doesn't require any effort for me to go and do that. I know how to take a leading line image. By pressing the shutter, by taking a couple of images that we know exactly how to do, it's gonna warm us up and it's gonna get us into flow, and then that's gonna make the rest of the process a lot easier. The reason I'm quoting Robert Kiyosaki for the idea of focus, follow one course until successful, is because it encourages output. It encourages intention with our photography. A lot of the time we hold ourselves to high expectations. This world of Instagram and comparing ourselves to everyone else's work it's a dangerous path to go down. But by focusing on one thing specifically, you're not distracted by the million other things that you could possibly be doing. Another example of this was with my YouTube channel maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I made a lot of just normal photography videos. Then I switched it up and was very specific about street photography. By forcing me to focus on street photography, by being so specifically niche about just street photography for like 12 months last year, I didn't make a single video apart from street photography stuff. That improved my skills in street photography, then my knowledge increased, my experience increased. I'm now able to talk about street photography probably more so than any other type of photography because I made it my focus specifically for a year on YouTube. Now obviously I've ventured out and done lots of other stuff. Recently you might have seen a lot of car photography, I've done some landscape stuff. But as far as YouTube content goes and as far as growing on YouTube, street photography was that one thing that I focused on. And then when I read this quote, focus, follow one course until successful, I was like, that's true. That's really true because I've implemented that on my YouTube channel with regards to street photography. Maybe just to keep this way more simple, let's say you're out doing street photography and there's lots of harsh light. There's gonna be lots of light and shadow. You've already got a goal in mind there. You know when you go out into the city or the streets or the town, wherever you live, if there's lots of light and shadow compositions, that's what you're gonna focus on. You're not gonna be distracted by a long exposure image. You're not gonna be distracted by portraits of strangers necessarily. You're gonna focus on the fact that this lighting is so unique and so interesting that you're taking light and shadow related street photography images. And that right there is an example of you encouraging an output. Your intention is one thing specifically, and I think that has a bigger payoff than just wandering around and hoping for the best. I think my last point on this before we have a look at what you guys have been saying about photography and what helps you take better photos, that this idea of focus, follow one course until successful, whether it's your street photography, whether it's YouTube channel, maybe it's your career, this isn't supposed to restrict us. The reason I'm making this video is because I'm thinking of different ways to improve upon my approach. How can I change my mindset with regards to creativity? Because like I said earlier, our expectations are so high. We have a look on Instagram for 2 seconds, we see some work by someone else and we're immediately comparing it to our own work. But instead of getting distracted by everyone else's work, what if we just focused on one thing and got really, really good at it? That way you are gonna stand out. Whether standing out is your intention or not, just by focusing on one thing, it's gonna encourage an output, it's gonna encourage intention, and you're gonna have way more focus and you're gonna have a goal in mind. You're gonna know exactly what you're doing. Whether that one thing is long-term or is just for 5 minutes. If I'm out doing street photography and I'm not very creative, then I'm just gonna jump straight into the things I know. I'm gonna look for simple rule of third images. I'm gonna look for leading line images. I'm gonna look for light and shadows until I start snapping away. I start getting a couple of images and then my creativity is flowing and I can go and do whatever I want. That seems to be what helps me take better photos. And that's why I'm sharing this idea of focus. Follow one course until successful because I really think it could help your photography. So now we're gonna go through the answers that you guys shared with me on Instagram when you was talking about what helps you take better photos. The Liam Hewitt said actively planning the shoot, which is actually very similar to what I'm suggesting here. Actually have a goal in mind and know exactly what you're gonna do. Sometimes this works, sometimes this doesn't. If I'm doing a POV photography shoot, I plan where I'm gonna go, I plan the route, I plan what camera I'm gonna use, and it makes the whole process so much easier. If this is a professional or a client piece of work, then planning the shoot is pretty crucial in my opinion. Everyone approaches photography differently, but actively planning the shoot, even if it's just 10 minutes, it's worth doing that 10 minutes before you go and shoot. Next one from Dominic, music and being in the comfort zone. Being in the comfort zone, meaning you're not necessarily stretching yourself, you're not necessarily going out of the box here, you just stick into what you know might be a good way to get creativity flowing. Now, I don't agree with always staying in the comfort zone. Improvements and progress in life happens outside of the comfort zone. But if you're just getting into flow, you're getting into the gist of things, music obviously goes without saying, and then being in the comfort zone. Yeah, you don't have to push yourself every time you go out and shoot. You don't have to push yourself and get out of the comfort zone every time you do anything. Sometimes just sticking to what you know can be the best route. This one from Ken Bean. I probably don't know how to say that properly. Watching a shit ton of YouTube videos, but when I'm out, it's just me and the music in my ears. Watching YouTube videos obviously can help. That's why I make these videos. Hopefully this helps someone. I enjoy talking about street photography and creative stuff. Maybe I don't listen to music enough when I'm out. Maybe I should, because I had a few people message me saying music helps them. Lo-fi beats to study to. That helps me when I'm sat here just like scripting videos or just writing stuff down. So maybe music does help me in my creative process. Don Diller, stealing other people's ideas, shots, and trying to add my own little flair. This right here could be a video in itself. I've just finished reading a book called Steal Like an Artist, but this idea of stealing other people's ideas is very true because nothing is actually original. So if you go and steal or copy or do something exactly the same as someone else, inherently, you're just gonna put your own spin on it without even knowing it. So yeah, if you are lacking inspiration or you don't know what to do next, Don Diller here, stealing other people's ideas, is an easy one. Go on Instagram, have a look at the hashtag Mike Chudley, have a look at some amazing photos on there and see what you want to copy. Have a look at what you think looks good and go and do it yourself. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There is, however, a problem with stealing someone's content and claiming it as your own. That's not okay. But using other people for inspiration is obviously, yeah, a massive win. I do that all the time. Captured Harmony said, clicking alone, I create best when alone. I actually agree. When I'm out doing street photography by myself and one other person's fine because we normally like stick to our own thing and shoot what we want. But when there's like more than 4 people involved, the creative process gets a little bit chaotic because let's be honest, we're normally just chatting away. We're being social and then you spot or you don't spot moments within street photography and yeah, you're too busy being social. I think that goes without saying. Having groups of people to shoot with is good, but I'm probably less productive when there's more than 2 of us. 50mm Matt, not having expectations. This is a huge one and a big part of why I made this video, so we can talk about focusing on one thing and not being distracted by everything else and not comparing ourselves to everything else. But yeah, basically not having expectations is a massive way of being creative because having expectations can limit you and stop you from getting started. So I massively agree with this, Matt. Lucas Francis, being with other photographers, being able to give and take inspiration on location. Again, a huge one. I love being social. I love having groups of photographers. I'm probably just less productive when I'm in a group because I'm just chatting away. But by chatting, networking, meeting other people, that's where you do get a lot of ideas. Like when Sam does these photo meets in London, Sam's done 3 photo walks now. The amount of people you meet and the amount of friends you make on stuff like that, it's so worth networking and going to these sort of things. But actually taking photos on that day, you probably don't take that many because you're being too social. But I do generally agree here from Lucas Francis, being around other photographers is a quick win and their way of getting inspiration from other people. Tadas Visuals, tips and tricks from people like you, Mike. Thank you. Hopefully, again, you're liking this video. If this is probably more of a rant and a waffle and a thought process, but I want this to be an open discussion. So hopefully the tips that I've shared in this video have helped, maybe. Nick Pix said, stopping and taking multiple shots of the same subject from different angles. This one's huge, actually. Sometimes we take a shot and we move on, but if we just take a shot and then change angle, take a shot, change angle, take a shot, we've now got 3 variations of that single shot. I think the main idea there is to not rush your process. Sometimes you have to be somewhere and meet someone, so you can't necessarily take your time. But definitely for me, when I have time to take multiple shots from different angles, I end up with a more complete collection of images because you've got more to choose from. So having more photos to choose from is always better than having not enough. And a very obvious one, and a final one I'm going to share from Christo Photos. Eating before I shoot. Obviously, get a coffee, get some food in you. You need that energy because as calming and as relaxing as street photography is, it is actually physically and mentally tiring sometimes if you're out 20, 30,000 steps and you're thinking about compositions and camera settings. It can be tiring. So obviously, eat before you shoot. And out of all the tips and everything I've shared in this video, that's probably the most practical one. Just have some coffee and eat. I hope this video has helped. I hope you've enjoyed this rant. I've been filming now for half an hour and hopefully this video is no longer than 10 minutes. Please leave your comments below. Share your thoughts in the comments. This is an open conversation. This is a discussion. This isn't the correct way to go out there and take photos. This isn't the only way you should be creative, but hopefully I've shared this idea of focus. Follow one course until successful. Be specific, have intention with your work, and then that will get the creative spark flowing and the world is your oyster from there. I just know from my experience, every time I be specific, I have a goal in mind. Every time I show more intention with my photography and I focus on one thing, it helps. I feel like I've said the word focus a lot in this video, so that's the last time I'm gonna say it. Please leave a comment below, leave a like, subscribe, road to 100,000 subscribers, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.